call the Plan Commission of October 11th, 2022 to order. Roll call.
Pinsky here.
Lorick here. Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Oldani here.
Seipert here.
Chandler here.
Get us to approval of minutes of September 27th, 2022. If everybody take a look. And when you're satisfied, there's no questions, omissions, corrections, or discussion. Motion, please.
Seipert moves to approve the minutes of September 27th, 2022.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with Hannah.
Hannah here. Oh. Hannah, aye.
Carlo, aye. Pinsky, aye.
Mark abstains.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seipert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 4 is significant common council actions. We had none to date. Item 5, Board of Housing Zoning Appeal Actions. Carrie?
Thank you. The Board of Zoning Appeals met for the first time this year and approved case number 22-0001, which was a request by David Markowski of 3711 East Putes Road. And that was a variance regarding the location of a fence, and in sum, what they wanted to do was replace a fence in an easement. It was an existing fence and had been approved in about 1997. And in the current code, we do not allow fences and easements. However, as the Plan Commission knows from our previous meeting, that we are proposing some amendments to the code to allow for certain circumstances under which a fence and an easement could be placed. In this case, they just happened to submit their appeal before we could finalize that change to the zoning code, which will be presented before the Common Council on November 1st. So it's a bit of a timing issue, and we weren't sure exactly what the outcome of that was going to be. So they were approved for a variance to allow for the replacement of the fence in the exact same location, same height, etc. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Item 6 is our quarterly Parks Recreation Commission actions. We will receive that next report shortly before Christmas, December 13th, 2022. That'll bring us right to our first and only public hearing, 7A, and it's a sign appeal. Proposal submitted by John Brooks, Discover Church / Oak Creek Assembly of God, and it would allow the applicant, I ain't going to read the whole wall dimensions because Gary's going to read this, but anyways, they're looking for the west elevation, east elevation, and modifications to the monument sign on the east side of the property at 7311 South 13th. So Carrie, if you want to properly read that.
Certainly. To be published September 21st, 2022, City of Oak Creek Notice of Public Hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held on October 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Common Council chambers. The appellant is John Brooks of Discover Church, also known as Oak Creek Assembly of God. Tax key number 76390240000 at 7311 South 13th Street. The request is for several variances from section 170604A4, 170604B12, 170604B22, 170604B5, and 170604B6. If granted, the variances would allow the applicant to install one 68.4 inch by 213 inch or 101.12 square foot wall sign on the west elevation, same measurements for a wall sign on the east elevation, and one monument sign that is 58.56 square feet. Also note that is not included in the notice, but it was part of the request. The monument sign is 10.25 feet in height. The zoning of the property is I-1 institutional. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 12th day of September 2022, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, Mayor Dan Bukevich, Chairman. This is a public hearing, and all those wishing to speak, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and address all of your comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open.
Thank you, Carrie. And as Carrie stated, this is a public hearing. I will make 3 calls. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, name and address. This is the first call. Second call. Third and final call on the public hearing. Come on up, sir.
Hello, I'm John Brooks, and I'm just wanting to address this. Our church has been in the city of Oak Creek since 1970, and we're changing our name to Discover Church, and that's happening November 1st. So we're basically replacing signage in its current locations. One of the reasons that we are requesting 2 signs on the building, our building does have 12 entrances because it's been added on 5 times over the years. And so those signs really act as wayfinder signs pointing out the main entrances. And also the variance for the monument sign along 13th Street, there was a utility box installed between us and South Shore Cinema, and there is a visual obstruction. And so we're asking to raise the height of the sign so that our marquee and sign and address are visible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that was the third and final call, but I'll do it one more time. Third and final call. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and go on to new business 8A. That is consideration of the sign appeal. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a few things to present as part of the staff report. As far as the variances are concerned, the allowances are 1 primary sign per lot frontage, and since there's only 1 real lot frontage, and that would be 13th Street, they would be allowed 1 wall sign. We understand and recognize that they are replacing signs over the entrances, and the reason that we are not able to just approve those wall signs is because they technically exceed what is allowed by code right now, and any sign would have to meet current code at the time that they were installed. So that's why we're here for the wall signs. As for the monument sign, they are allowed 1 50 square foot, 8 foot tall monument sign, and as currently written in the code, the monument sign would have to be 10 feet from utility easements and have a 10% extension of the base. So in other words, the base has to be a little bit wider than what the actual sign is per code, just a little bit. And what's being proposed in these locations, as far as the wall signs are concerned, staff really doesn't have much of concern with those either. It just slightly exceeds the square footage for each of those. What's designated as C is the current and proposed location of the monument sign. So just the signs on the building. This is what's being proposed on the west. Same on the east, same size. As for the monument sign, this is what is existing. And this is, the inset here is what was approved as part of a permit for that monument sign. The several variances that would be required are for the height of the sign, for the overall square footage, for the fact that the existing base does not stick out at that minimum 10% per code, and it doesn't meet the setback to utility easements. Now, staff is not very concerned about that because it still meets the setback requirements to the property lines. And as we discussed at the previous meeting, we are suggesting in the code update that the setback to a utility easement was actually an error. It should just be that it should be outside of the easement, which it is. As far as the proposal for the monument sign is concerned, this is what's being requested, and that is for Plan Commission consideration. Now, staff does not make recommendations regarding sign appeals. We only provide the information. However, decisions to approve a sign variance may be made utilizing criteria that there shall be no public harm, there shall be a public benefit. Considerations should include determinations as to conformance with 170607, which is at your stations, and variance considerations can be for location, height, size, appearance, etc. Basically anything but content. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. This time I'll open it up to commission. Christine, you want to start us off, please?
Yes, I have a question for you, Carrie. If you go to the previous slide. Yes. I don't see any difference between both.
It's just a day and a night.
Yeah, so What is the difference? This is a proposed, correct?
Right.
So what is the difference between this and the original one or the existing, I should say?
The
Is it the height?
The existing is totally different dimensions. And what's being proposed is it exceeds current code requirements. So they're limited to 50 square feet. They're asking for a little over 58. They're limited to a height of 8 feet. They're asking for 10.25 feet. So that's what is being requested. As far as the base is concerned, the base doesn't actually, per their design, exceed the overall sign area by the minimum 10%. They want to utilize the existing base. But in doing so, the design doesn't meet that code requirement. So those are the variances for current code requirements.
And the reason for the variance is just to be a little bit elevated and be more visible, correct? That's what I understand.
And that's what I heard from the applicant as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Christine? On?
A question about the video, the display.
EMC,
Yeah, will that have pictures or just copy?
I would have to defer to the applicant.
They'll mostly be service times and events. I'd imagine there would be very few pictures. There could be a graphic for like Christmas, but communicating times.
Ashley?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Greg?
As far as the wall signs, I have no concern. It seems to be replacing the existing ones. For the monument sign, I guess I'd prefer if the applicant could try a little more to meet current code, with the exception of the easement setback that's currently being worked on. I don't know how tall this utility box is for comparison.
Standard transformer, 2.5 feet. 30 inches.
That's
I'm
probably, it's
guessing.
probably less than 4 feet.
Okay. So I feel that the 8-foot standard could be obtained. I don't know if there's any concern with the 10-foot sign. From my understanding, there's a lot of traffic during service times coming in and out of there. I don't know if the taller sign would obstruct anything. But I guess I would be on board for the applicant to try to hit the code requirements on the monument sign.
Okay, Chris?
I agree with everything that Alderman Lork said.
On?
I have no questions.
Fred?
No questions?
Chauncey?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. I'm along the lines of Greg. I totally get the entrances. Right now, it looks like your existing sign is 28 and 6'9". So, what are we talking? We're almost at 10 feet anyways. We're talking a variance of 9 inches. I actually don't have an issue with that, given the size of that complex. I dare anybody to figure out that thing's 9 inches too tall. But I think I think Greg brought up a really legit thing. Does this hurt the vision triangle?
No, the sign should be out of the vision triangle, but I do agree with Greg, though, to kind of stick with what's out there at the max, or try to stay within code.
So I mean, you'd have to probably get the base down a little bit, or the sign somewhere along the line. The sign's probably pre-built for what it is.
It appears that from what we had in the file for permitting purposes, and I don't know how accurate that is because things change. It appears that the base is supposed to be 28 inches, and in the proposal, it's shown as 18. Now, that could be just to accommodate the rest of the sign. It could be an error. It could be aesthetic. It could be a lot of things. That's actually a point of clarification that would need to be made in terms of permitting requirements. We don't have anything that I am aware of in the code that has a minimum height for the base, just the minimum width to extend from the overall sign area. That's just a point to make. Really has no bearing on anything in terms of code requirements. It's just a matter of those are the dimensions proposed versus existing.
'Cause it's going in the existing location.
That's correct. It's going in the existing location. Staff have no concerns for the existing location. Like I said, the setback that's in the code right now, we propose to amend that because we don't think that's actually what was intended.
Probably back in the day when 13th, before it was widened, they were well within the setback.
In that location, probably not.
From what 13th was without a sidewalk.
Well, I mean, I don't know that the property line changed all that much from when that monument sign was installed. The monument sign's been there since, gosh, the mid-2000s maybe?
Go ahead, Greg.
For clarification, given that they're using the existing base, and the existing base is 28 inches, but the proposed shows 18, is there a chance that it's going to add 10 inches to the overall height?
That would be something that would be a clarification point by the applicant, and it could be that they're taking part of it off. It's entirely possible.
So we have a difference here of, what are we talking about? 9 inches?
Maybe a foot.
Maybe a foot.
But again, it's code requirement for if you're replacing a sign, you're allowed a maximum of 8 feet. So the variance is still for 2 feet. But in terms of what's out there right now versus what's being proposed, we're looking at about a foot difference.
Any representative from the sign company or the church? Come on up, sir. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Kelly Hanaway from the Milwaukee Sign Company. We're at N63W22625 Main Street in Sussex. Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific questions, but the overall height would be inclusive of the existing base. Now, we've measured, I've never seen that picture there, that were you guys looking at the screen where it shows 28 or base height, is that 28 or 26? I can't quite read it, but
It says 28 here.
28, yeah. I believe what we measured was currently what's there, but I will say that the height, the overall height, would not exceed what we are proposing. And just from I've sat, I've driven that road, and it's about a line of sight issue is really what it is. And in the day when that was, built, that was fine at that level. But it does restrict visibility, and to the point where, use the term hardship, but you really can't see from a lot of that road from the direction where that utility box is. The electronic messaging center, it almost, in order to be readable, it needs to be at that height. It's a 3x8 box. The EMC is itself, and in order to get value out of that or to make it usable, it would need, again, our opinion would be that it has to be up. And the only reason the overall structure went up was to account for getting it up to the level above that, because every time we went up a little bit, it just brought the whole thing up just from an aesthetic perspective to make it look kind of harmonious.
So just a question for you. Did you measure or happen to measure the height of the existing utility box?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I do have it. I have a drawing of that back.
Okay.
But yeah, otherwise, honestly, I don't think it would be an issue.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because if the request is for the visibility of the EMC portion, the bottom of the EMC is 3.5 feet from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that the EMC at the proposed level is not even going to be seen over that utility box?
I think it was, well, again, we've gone through it a few times and proposed it back and forth. We believe that that's at an adequate height. Having it higher up, similar to, other monuments I've seen are very, very large, but trying to keep it within the guidelines of the requirements, it seemed to be a reasonable compromise. But at that height, ideally it would be higher, but I mean, then everything just gets taller, of course, when you do that, including the cabinet that houses the EMC.
Would it be possible to move the address numerals below the D logo for better visibility for emergency services?
Yes, absolutely, or even on the brick, if that would be helpful, but I'm sure we could definitely do that. I believe those are illuminated. I'd have to go back and look at it, but yes, they could certainly be put up there with the client's approval. Yes.
And the reason I ask for those to be moved is because we do have a requirement for landscaping at the base, and I would be concerned that those numerals would not be visible once the landscaping was to be installed, and also if the transformer does have any kind of visibility blockage for the sign, the numerals are going to be important for emergency services.
No, that's a great point. And I mean, from an aesthetic perspective, it could go on the white box or on the brick to get it as high as the EMC for certain. Again, to be a client's
You know,
choice.
by the picture, the numbers don't look backlit.
Maybe they're not. I don't recall, honestly. John would know, but.
Well, they're definitely not shown backlit.
Oh, yeah, you're right on the night view, for sure.
The numerals for the address are something that is not part of the variance requirements or consideration, but that's just something to keep in mind whenever you apply for your permits.
Very good.
Do you know the current height of the sign? If the base is actually 18 versus the 28 in that picture? And that's bringing it down to almost the 8-foot mark.
You mean the current sign that's there?
Yeah.
I unfortunately don't have that with me. I don't want to speak to it.
Yeah, and what was in the file, this was the only image that we had in the file, and like I said,
Right.
things change.
Well, and if that's what was approved, but then they built it at 18 inches, it's actually closer to the 8-foot mark than currently. And then we're going up 2 feet.
Yeah, I have no idea whether or not the graphic is the most accurate or if the measurements outside are different.
Based on the picture, I would say it's higher than 18 inches, but I'm looking at a picture too, and it's not a fair assumption. Don, you got a pad. Can you zoom in on that thing? What's your guesstimate?
So we're looking. You think it might be closer to 18 because it says 28.
Right.
It's 28 on one drawing, 18 on another.
Yeah, 28 is what we saw in the file for the existing monument sign. Now, again, that was the only image that I was able to find in the historic permitting files. So that could have been changed. That could have been inaccurate. This was the one that was conditionally approved by the electrical inspector at the time. But again, if there was an amendment, I just wasn't able to locate it.
Yeah. It's really hard. But you don't plan on taking a course off of that?
No, that wasn't the intent right now. No, we're going to use that existing base.
Well, regardless of how tall the base actually is, if the request is for 123 inches as measured from grade, that would be what the variance would be granted.
That's correct. That is.
It's out to 10.3.
10.25.
Should be at 8.
Right.
Well, again, I kind of stated my case early on, given the size of the complex. It isn't 10 all the way across. You're probably given, it's 10 all the way across pretty much. I'm not making a good case here. Well, commissioners, opinions. Come on up, John.
One other thing that might be helpful from our perspective is if you look at like Google Street View, I had taken a picture, I can't find it right now, but if you look at Google Street View from the entrance of South Shore Cinema towards our church, you can see the obstruction, but none of the marquee is visible. And so we're not looking for a problem for an answer, but yeah, just the marquee becomes not viable for the sign without the additional height. Thank you.
We're doing some technical stuff.
One more clarification to our other executive pastor measured the box. It's 4.5 feet high,
Oh, the electrical box.
the electrical box.
Yeah, it's a good sized box.
Pretty darn big.
Oh, there. Harry has it too.
Yes. Up now for you guys to see him.
Safe to say Marcus's sign is over 10 foot.
The South Shore Cinema sign did receive a variance, and that was under the old code.
Honestly, my thought is I would not have a hardship if they needed to go bigger.
Okay. Thank you for the input, Chris.
I actually agree with that. I think it's not really a big impact, like an addition for a foot. It's not going to impact the vision triangle like engineering has presented. So the purpose is just to kind of more visible from the street, and we just saw the street view. So, and it's not like 2 or 3 foot that's going to make a major impact. It's just a foot that's going to help. So I think that's a good request.
It is a large campus. It's a very large campus. It's not like we're squeezing it on a small lot. But Fred, any thoughts?
No, I just wondered how that electrical box got that close to the road.
E Energies has the ability to put the electrical boxes wherever they see fit.
Not saying anything against it, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, they don't usually contact us whenever they put them in, they just appear.
On anything? Ashley?
No.
Okay, it's go time, so somebody want to do a motion?
The numerals are not concerning for the variance procedure, so no, you don't need to make a ruling on that.
You want Fire's opinion? They're the ones that, I'm sure they know where Assembly of God is, but they're the ones that require it. Mike, as long as you're here, I'm gonna get your expertise on this.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Mike Cavey, Oak Creek Fire. During the permitting process, we can select the area for the numerals and make sure that it's adequate for our needs.
And even if it hits the brick.
Yeah. we'll be able to work with the applicant and make sure they're assigned in the right location.
All right.
So there is a motion for consideration on page 3 of your staff report, but there is one part that's missing, and that is the height. So the motion for consideration would be that the Plan Commission approves the sign variances, allowing for the installation of one 68.4 inch by 213 inch or 101.12 square feet wall sign on the west elevation, and one 68.4 inch by 213 inches 101.12 square foot wall sign on the east elevation, and one 58.56 square foot 10.25 feet in height monument sign on the property at 7311 South 13th Street.
Guzikowski, so moved.
Okay, as stated by Carrie. Is there a second?
Oldani seconds.
Roll call beginning with Dawn.
Pillow eye.
Krasinski, aye.
Clark, no.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye. Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler eye.
Anna, I.
Okay. Just one last question, guys. When do you plan on installing the signs?
We're legally becoming Discover Church on November 1st, and so we're going to order the signs tomorrow if approved. Yeah.
Okay, so
November 6th is our goal for installation.
okay,
By November 6th.
we have an election on November 7th.
Yes,
So we just want to tell the clerk to inform the public, because you are kind enough to be a polling spot for us, to alert the public so they're no longer looking for Assembly of God.
yes, the clerk is aware.
Okay, thank you very much.
No,
And I
thank
do
you.
appreciate you opening up your facility
No,
for
our
use of
pleasure.
the city.
Thank you.
Okay. 8B, plan review, site, landscape, and related plans for Independent Corrugated for an expansion of an existing parking lot at 525 West Marquette Avenue. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a multi-step kind of request here. One is for the expansion of the parking area, and that expansion of the parking area has a couple other requirements due to the expansion, and we'll talk about that. The other request as part of this is for a new crosswalk crossing 6th Street, and that is intended to connect the two properties for Independence Corrugated. So we're looking at a couple of different things. There have also been landscaping and lighting plans submitted, and as part of the increase in impervious surface for that parking lot, there is a requirement for some vegetative restoration. So those are the items that are included in this request. On the site plan, or on the screen right now, is a site plan proposal. In red is the location of the proposed parking lot expansion, the crosswalk, and those are the main components of this request. And then on the screen to the right, which would be the east side of the building, if you can see 3 green highlighted areas, those are the areas that are proposed to be restored with vegetation. Want to kind of talk about a few things here. So on the screen right now is the landscape plan. Unfortunately, we still have some discrepancies between the civil plans and the landscape plans. So as part of staff's concerns, we just want to make sure that all of the plans match both within and amongst each other. The vegetative restoration that is on the east, so these green boxes here, unfortunately, the plans that were submitted did not have anything specific with regard to how that area was going to be restored. It is currently asphalt and concrete. It's currently the location for some parking areas. If we're going to be removing those areas in order to meet the minimum 30% green space requirement on the property, we do need to make sure that the vegetation for restoration purposes is going to survive. So we need to have the excavation down and including the gravel base that is currently existing. So we do need the plans to reflect those details in order to make that vegetative restoration viable. You do not have a good idea from these particular site plans where the existing parking is that is going to remain versus what's going to be removed as part of the vegetative screening. We've found about 12 parking stalls, but overall, the plans need to identify what parking is going to be remaining on site and including the brand new parking. The reason we need to know that is because we have minimum parking requirements. So we recognize that these are two separate parcels that are going to be connected via the crosswalk. We understand that employees are going to be going back and forth between two facilities. However, we do need to make sure that we have enough parking for both facilities. So just having that idea of where the existing versus the existing parking on the property in addition to the proposed parking, we do need to have an overall plan that shows exactly where it all is. In terms of other items to be revised prior to permitting, we have some references to prior code requirements, and in order to avoid confusion, since this is under the current code, not the prior code, we need to have those removed. For instance, the reference to 5% parking lot screening or 5% parking lot vegetation, that's no longer valid. We have different standards now. And as far as landscaping is concerned, if we go back to the landscape plan, overall the plan is not concerning. We just need to make sure that it meets the minimum code requirements. So we do recognize that there is quite a bit of vegetation that's presented, and we do appreciate that. That is something that we like to see. We do need to make sure that the installation of the plants that are intended to screen those parking stalls do so effectively, and there is a minimum height requirement for 3 feet. And based on that requirement in code, the number of vegetative materials that would be used for screening at the minimum of 3 feet, based on the number of parking stalls, the overall length, a minimum of 51 at that 3 foot tall mark would be required now. We recognize that there is also some room for, kind of making sure that there are drifts in here. So if we don't meet the exact number of 51, but we still achieve the majority of the screening purposes, we'll be fine with that. Just need to make sure that we do have the adequate screening at a minimum of 3 feet in order to meet the spirit and intent, at least, of the code, if not the minimum number of plants. And as far as the islands are concerned, we have in the civil plans certain islands that have been identified for square footage purposes, but it does appear that those labels are incorrect. We only have a couple of them that are labeled, but we do want to make sure that we have all those details correct. There is a requirement for islands to be a minimum of 9 feet wide and 18 feet long with a minimum 36-inch soil depth for maintaining those plantings. Now, we understand also that there are some corner, not necessarily islands, but some corner landscape areas that may not meet those exact dimensions, but we do need to have the details for those on the plans as well. Due to the nature of the proposal, green infrastructure will be required, and that permitting needs to be coordinated with the engineering department. And as far as the lighting is concerned, there are 2 new light poles that are presented in the plans for the expanded parking lot. They will include full cutoff fixtures. They need to be directed downward and shielded and have a maximum of 5,000 kelvins. And that is included in the suggested motion on the screen that is in 2 parts for Plan Commission consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Quite a bit. Applicant, before we go to the commission, anybody like to say anything? Come on up, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Chad Gillenwater. My address is 10570 South Jessica Drive in Oak Creek. I'm here as a representative of Independence Corrugated, formerly the plant manager. Now I'm a regional manager for our ownership group. Don't need to get into specifics of that. But basically we had 3 goals in mind. Independence has been in operation since '04. Started with about 60 employees, have grown to about 100 as of last year at the 7475 South 6th Street location. We've utilized the property across the street for paper storage. We're a corrugated sheet manufacturer. We make sheets that convert, into boxes, displays, that sort of thing. So in the past 6 months, we've started operations across the street. We've hired about 25 employees currently with one shift. We'll probably have enough to start a second shift within the next few months. We'll probably go from 25 to 55 to hopefully a year from now, another, total of 60 employees at the Marquette location. So we wanted to add parking as well as kind of move some of the employee flow away from the east side of the building where there are parking lot, where like some of that green space is. Our paper is stored on the east side of the building, which means industrial truck traffic, and we're trying to bring the employees away from that and not using those entrances as much. So that was the basic idea of adding the parking towards the west side, and then creating a safe traffic area to get people from one building to the next. And we don't have a steady flow all day long, but we have our HR is located at the 6th Street location. Our general manager, our primary office people are at the 6th Street location. So we have people that walk back and forth, fairly regularly currently to do that. When the ground is dry, they can walk through the grass, but when things start to get messy, they're walking on the street. We really wanted to get them off of the street and try to get a better path. Anybody that's been down 6th Street between 6th and Marquette knows that people can kind of hum around the corner. So this was just kind of the first way we could try to get people from point A to point B safely, as well as increase our capacity and our overall spacing. And we believe, with what has been presented, we'll have a very nice, visually appealing property, comparatively speaking to what it is now as well.
Thank you. Chauncey, you want to start us out this time?
Surely, I do have a question. Can you share with us the pathway that will be taken or has been provided to go between the two buildings?
Me or you?
Commissioner Chandler, if you look at the screen right now, if you can follow my cursor, this is the proposed walkway between the parking lot crossing 6th Street to the property across, and there is an existing parking lot there.
So is green space in that area? I guess I'm not understanding.
So the walkway is going in between some proposed bushes, and it's currently grassed on the Marquette property.
Okay. And so potentially based on that, is that linked to the removal of the asphalt?
No.
Okay, so that's a different area.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess for the applicant, can you provide more feedback on removing the asphalt in a different area, as well as the vegetative restoration?
That was more of an oversight of trying to figure out, how do we add the green space? And of course, I'm not the engineer. We came up with the square footage to make it work, but we fully intend to meet all the requirements of digging down, 36 inches and planting the appropriate, I'm sure it's going to be shade grass over there, but we'll make it work.
Okay, and that would also include the additional trees and shrubs as well?
Yes.
So Commissioner Chandler, I just circled the 3 proposed restoration areas on the east that is currently asphalt and being proposed for vegetative restoration. That is separate and apart from the landscaping that is proposed for the new parking area and for the walkway crossing 6th Street.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, and then one additional item, there was a question about the number of parking spaces. So will that be also increased?
The issue was that it's not clearly marked out on the east side, with the total number over there. We kind of picked the two green spots because it was kind of like 12 spots, 14 spots, 12 spots. It's just, it wasn't noted that there's like 14 or 16 spots in between there. So we will have the number of spots required by the time we're done. Right now, there's a dumpster in position on the northeast corner that we'll probably utilize that to add a couple more spots on angle as necessary. But we will have the number of required spots by the time we're done.
Thank you.
Okay. Brad?
No questions at this time.
Don?
No questions.
Chris?
No questions.
Greg?
No questions, thank you.
Ashley?
No questions.
Don?
For me.
Christine?
Yes, I have a question. And maybe you have answered it already. Does this entrance and this parking lot, does it separate between the truck entrance and the employees, or it's just the same?
They're the same.
They're the same. So have this designed to make sure that there is no conflict between the truck movement and the entrance, and how there is a visibility, so the trucks, and I'm assuming they are big, large semi, and it's just going to have to conflict, and from safety perspective, yes.
Well, it also kind of goes hand in hand with, by adding this parking on the west side, it's going to create a flow out through 6th Street, whereas currently everybody comes in and parks in the little, the 16 area that's there near the office. They come in from Marquette, and then they go out on Marquette. So hopefully, the goal here is the flow will come in off of Marquette and then will flow out through 6. So that will help some of the truck traffic. We only have 10 docks on the north side that are in use. Most of the time, our capacity right now, we're really only using 6 or 7 docks at a time, and our shipping department tends to keep them on the east side of the building, because that's where our production side is, closer to where the forklifts are running. So so far we haven't had too much issues with traffic between trucks and autos.
One more thing. Where does trucks park? Where they're parking? The back of the building, or where there are spots?
When you say truck parking, we don't have any of our own drivers that have overnight parking on our lot. All of our deliveries or our inbound or outgoing are just coming in, making a dock appointment, and leaving. So we don't have any staged semi-trailers on our lot.
Okay, that's good. Just the reason why I'm asking, because you are adding this to add more parking slots for additional employees and make the flow between both buildings. So adding those trucks or delivery trucks, or make sure it doesn't park over those parking spaces, because they will take more than one space. So it would defeat the purpose.
No, our lot's not big enough to handle any semi-parking, and we have very minimal. We don't have a dedicated trucking line. That was worked about 18 years ago. We had a dedicated trucking line, and there are on the 6th Street side. There's plug-ins for heaters and that kind of stuff. Now we have very minimal, but that's all on the 6th Street side. Nothing on the Marquette.
Can you put back staff concerns on the screen again, Carrie? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Kind of comes back to me. So I've had the pleasure of touring your plant. Pretty impressive little operation. Ain't a little operation. It's a very nice operation. Keep in mind, it's nice they're expanding, but as he said, this east side building sits on the east side of 6th Street is a storage facility currently. So finished product and raw product as well. And the raw product actually comes by rail. Mm-hmm. and it's brought across, currently across the road. So, I think this is a great improvement if you're going to do a little bit of production there as well. You're going to add these people in. If we can get through these issues that we see on the screen with staff, I'm confident we can make this work without a out. I guess my question is, you know, you're putting in that pathway across the street. Is there something, lack of a better word, an ask of the city to put in at least a painted walkway across that street? Would that help safety-wise? That would fall on probably our DPW. I'm sure they're really happy I bring this up, but Ashley?
Yeah, we can look to include that. I know we've worked quite extensively with the designer on getting everything up to standards as far as curb ramps, crosswalks, signage, advanced signage. So we've been working with them on all that. We could definitely look to add the pavement marking as well for
I
crosswalk.
think
That's
so,
not on
and
the line.
maybe a couple of warning signs upcoming, because I do agree with you. I'm probably one of them people that zips around 6th Street a little faster than I should. So I know how the traffic flies through there.
Yep, there will be signage right at the crosswalk, and then there will be advanced, crosswalk ahead signage as well.
Okay. But the current motion does include continuing to work through these issues, correct? The inconsistent plan and what have you, Carrie? Are we on a good path to settle these?
I think with the 10 conditions that are presented, we have a path forward.
Okay. With that, I really don't have any questions or concerns.
Okay.
Glad to see you're doing that well.
And thank you for consideration, and thank you to
Okay. Any further discussion, commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, motion?
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission approve site and related plans submitted by Chad Gillenwater, Independence Corrugated, for the property at 525 West Marquette Avenue with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2, that all plans are revised to be consistent within and among all pages. 3, that the plans are revised to include details for the asphalt removal and vegetative restoration on the east, including removal of the gravel subbase. 4, that the plans are revised to identify all existing and proposed parking stalls. Existing stalls to be removed for restoration purposes shall be labeled. 5, that the plans are revised to note current zoning code requirements. 6, that the plans are revised to include locations of screening for any new mechanical equipment, transformers, and utilities if applicable. 7, that the landscape plans are revised to meet code requirements for parking lot screening. 8, that a green infrastructure permit is coordinated with the engineering department and issued prior to issuance of permits for the project. 9, that all light sources are shielded and directed downward, and that the color temperature of the fixtures are limited to a maximum of 5,000 kelvins. 10, that all revised plans are submitted in digital format for review and approved by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of permit applications.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with Ashley.
Shinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye. Hello, aye.
Oh, thank you very much. Item 8C is a rezone. Submitted by Milwaukee County Parks to rezone the property at 1709 West Drexel Avenue from P1 Park District to P1 Park District, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a remnant parcel that, partially a remnant parcel from WISDOT that was acquired by Milwaukee County Parks. So the request is to change the portion that has been acquired to P1 Park District, and of course, there's no change to the floodway or flood fringe on here. There is no development proposed at this time. It will remain open public park space, and that's why they're asking for it to be rezoned. Anything that they acquire, my understanding is they have to present it into park district. So this does actually require an amendment to the comprehensive plan. We currently have it as a couple of different items for future development, but since it will remain as public and open space, that would have to be changed. And that's partially due to the fact that while we were doing the comprehensive plan, we weren't entirely certain what was going to happen with that parcel. So right now on the screen, I'm showing you, oh, interesting. Unfortunately, the graphic has decided to jump on its own. So the blue area, which should be over what's hatched, that is the portion to be retained by WISDOT. And the yellow, which is actually supposed to be over the blue to make it a little bit easier for you to see, that's the part that's going to be rezoned, excluding the floodway and flood fringe. So I'm not sure what happened with this screen, but it decided to do some gremlin thing. So as you can see, it's a portion of the property that would be retained and converted to park. And it's right adjacent to existing parklands to the west. The on-ramp and right-of-way for WISDOT does, if you can kind of see, continue down along the existing freeway. So there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen for commission consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone from the county? Would you like to say a few words? Name and address, please.
Certainly. Jeremy Lucas, Director of Administration and Planning, Milwaukee County Parks. This is a parcel of property that we acquired from the DOT as somewhat of a compensation for continuing the mandated services that we provide at Highway. The North Shop facility by Schenecker Park is in the process of being remodeled. Some parts of it are over 100 years old. And in order to have a modern facility that accommodates the equipment and vehicles needed to clear the highways, that location need to be expanded and unfortunately expanded into parkland. So in order to kind of make sure that we maintain the amount of parkland we have in the county, we were able to connect with the Department of Transportation, and they had this no longer use parcel, or the portion at which staff have explained will be retained for the ramp. The remainder will be added to natural area parkland, wetlands to the west. And just the function of the zoning is very important for us at the county, as land use determinations are aligned with the zoning. The legislative branch, Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, are in charge of all land zoned as park in the county. The executive branch maintains control over all others. So to remain aligned with acts of the legislature, we rezone all newly acquired property that is for park use to remain under the authority of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Questions? Christine?
Yes, I'm not sure if I'm clear or not from that exhibit. So the blue, almost like a triangle, this is still owned by the DOT, correct?
Well, I tried to make it a little bit clearer for you. So it's actually this area here corresponds with this area here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's retained by DOT. And it keeps going all the way down here.
So, yeah.
Yep.
And the yellow is what's being
Acquired.
kind of, yes,
Yep.
lot for the county park.
Correct.
Maybe it's just kind of a stupid question, but why not the entire rectangle? What is this triangle is going to do? It's just a little bit awkward.
Well, the triangle, the blue triangle, which corresponds with the yellow, that's the part that is part of that's about 6 acres. That's the part that is being, well, I can't say being because there's already been a quitclaim deed. So Parks already owns that part. And WISDOT determined that they are in need of what's left in the hatched area, and that's it.
They know what they're going to do with it?
That's part of the right-of-way for the freeway.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, especially you're trying to transfer this to a park and wetland and whatever else, and it depends what DOT is going to use for this land. So it just has to be reasonable, whatever they're going to use it by, close to a park.
So it's already right-of-way.
Yeah, what's in it though?
There's the on-ramp.
Thank you.
Okay, Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Ashley?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Greg?
The only question that, if I read this correctly, it's just being rezoned. You're not doing anything. It's just staying natural, wooded, whatever.
Correct. That matches the use of the 2 parcels that Parks owns to the west.
Okay,
Chris?
No questions.
Don?
No questions. Pretty straightforward, I think.
Okay, Fred?
No questions.
Chauncey?
No questions, thank you.
I have none either. I mean, from the first picture, it kind of looked like you were rezoning one of the homes there, but obviously with this picture,
No, and perhaps I wasn't clear. I think that the reason that WISDOT is kind of continuing along the freeways to ensure that there's no access to the freeway from these park properties too, and that's part of the quit claim deed as well. So if the configuration looks a little bit odd, especially with that skinny bit, that's intentional.
So there is like a retaining wall or something along that stretch?
I don't know if there's a retaining wall, if they're intending a fence, but that's intended to maintain WISDOT control and authority over access to the freeway and to prevent anybody going over there, so.
I'm just curious, trying to understand how they're gonna separate WISDOT between their facility and the park that's being rezoned.
well, they have an existing fence now.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
There is a
following that property
There
line,
is a cyclone
but
fence that follows the property.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, motion on 8C.
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property at 1709 West Drexel Avenue be rezoned from A1 Limited Agricultural to P1 Park District after a public hearing.
Commissioner Seipert, we do need to have what's in the parentheses read into the motion, please.
Oh, to include the no change to the flood fringe, floodway district. No change to the
Correct.
floodway or the flood fringe district after a public hearing.
Thank you.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call. Greg, you want to start us?
Lorik, aye.
David Chime.
Guzekowski, aye.
Aldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, I.
Grillo, aye.
Okay, now that'll get us to some choices for our own personal thing here. Cancellation of meetings. The Plan Commission shall vote on a motion to cancel either the November 22nd, 2022 meeting or the December 27th, 2022 meeting. So I'm sure everybody would like that long break between Christmas, at least I'm guessing. That means our last planning meeting would be
December 13th.
13th or 19th? Oh, yeah, 13th. We would not meet again until January the 10th.
That's correct.
So that kind of
So-
puts us out a month. Guess there's really not a big difference one way or the next.
The major difference would be, well, the impact would be to applicants because the last meeting of the month would be December 13th as opposed to the 27th. If you wanted to do that one and not Thanksgiving week. Up to you.
Is there a meeting on November 8th, Election Day?
So you'll meet the 8th, November the 22nd, unless you so decide to cancel. That's right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Or the 27th, which would give the applicants the last chance on the 13th by the end of the year.
Right.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is there anything to tie up usually at the end of the year?
We usually get a run up to whatever the last meeting is. It doesn't matter when it is. It's just what happens. People find out when the last meeting is and they want to get in before the end of the year.
We can figure it out, but this is where you can exercise some personal choice here, so we don't often get that.
Just note that if you do cancel the December meeting, be prepared for a really long December 13th meeting.
You mean January 13th?
No, if you cancel the
Oh,
December
okay.
27th meeting, the December 13th meeting will be lengthy.
Or the January meeting.
Yeah, January 10th would be probably super long
You
too.
would think, but honestly, the last meeting of the year is probably, it has more of a chance to be a long meeting than the first of the year.
So we'll open it for discussion. Any preferences left?
December. November to cancel. No, December cancellation. I have my kids in the last 2 weeks, so I like to have them with no interruptions.
Dawn?
December.
December.
Chris?
December.
December.
Brad?
December,
Jossie?
December.
Okay, then the motion would be for cancellation of the December 27th meeting.
Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission cancel the December 27th, 2022 meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, and I will begin it. Aye.
Guzekowski,
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Shinsky, aye.
Clark, aye.
Okay. Announcements. Dawn, what's going on at the market?
We have our 23rd market, getting close to the end, second last one. And farmers still have a lot of produce coming out of the field, so good shape.
And Fall Fest 22nd.
Fall Fest to run consecutively with the last market, correct? But it goes till 6 p.m.
That is a big one. So with that,
I'm sorry, I have one announcement. I regret to inform you that Jack has tendered his resignation and he will be leaving us as of October 21st. So we want to wish him well. He is moving on to a planner position in his hometown of West Dallas. He's done a great job for us since joining us as an intern, and I'm a little bit heartbroken that he's leaving, but I wish him all the best. He's been great to work with, and just wanted to let the Plan Commission know that unfortunately you probably won't see him again unless you see him in the City Hall.
yeah, that is too bad. I just learned that on Friday, as a matter of fact. So do wish him well. Good young man, and he's got a bright future there. So that'll get us to adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:07.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, Chris.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Shinsky, aye.
Okay, which I. All right. Good night, everybody.